Welcome back
to another episode of the Innovating on Purpose podcast.
Hosted by Matt Mueller,
best-selling author of The Mindful Innovator and Rethink Retail's top retail expert.
We help retail leaders find clarity so they can grow their businesses purposefully.
We will uncover mindful tips, innovative solutions, and purposeful leadership advice and strategies that you can apply immediately to your retail innovation. Are you ready to innovate on purpose?
Hey, before we jump into the episode today, I just wanted to say thank you for hitting the play button. You being here fires me up, and I cannot wait to share with you the insights that are going to make a difference in your business. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and leave a review so I can reach as many retail leaders as possible. They too need to hear this. Okay, let's do it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Innovate on Purpose. Today we are kicking off Season 2. We're finally putting an end to Season 1. Season 1 was all about corporate innovation and helping leaders find those mindful tips and leadership advice that they can use to innovate their business. In Season 2, we are going to get in the weeds. And what I mean by that, we're going to get deep into the retail and CPG industry with leaders all around the globe to talk about how innovation is within this space. It's something that is near and dear to my heart. It's a place that I've been for a very long time. And I am so excited that on our first episode of Season 2, we have an amazing guest, someone that is extremely inspiring and running an amazing brand, Joe O'Connor from Applegate. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, Matt. Thanks. That's a nice intro. I appreciate it. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm just so happy that you're on the show. Just looking at your past, sales leader for a very long time, being in Hormel for a pretty long time as well, and then jumping over to Applegate and now being president of Applegate. I mean, that is an amazing professional career journey. I'm just curious, Joe, tell me a little bit more about exactly what your journey was like and what has been the most biggest piece of that journey that got you into the seat of president of Applegate.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. First, say it's all about luck and timing. I really do believe that. It's always about the connections you make along the way. But I have been really fortunate. Coming out of college, had a lot of opportunities with Hormel to advance, as you say, a lot of sales roles. And really, once I transitioned into people leadership, that's where I actually found my true passion and love. I mean, people say they like leading teams and they love talent development. I freaking love it. It's my favorite part of the job. And once I started doing it, I was like, I'm not bad at this. This is something I'm pretty good at. And then once you started building larger teams, you evolve and you advance in how you do it. And then really the opportunities when this presented for Applegate. So since the acquisition was made, I let it be known that I wanted to come over here from Hormel, but Hormel had put their hand up because they had put a barrier between the Applegate team and brand and the Hormel enterprise. And it's still today separate. And that's what makes it a really unique situation. And so eventually, though, I got the call, Matt, to come over and came over in a previous role for sales and marketing, which was my first foray really into that space. And then eventually the president opportunity. But what really, I think, got me here was just a really well-rounded background, except the opportunities that were presented to me. And they were in some spaces I may not have been comfortable in at the time, but I developed a pretty healthy, what I think, resume and background and positioned me to take this role. But I still pinch myself. I still struggle to say president of Applegate. It still happens today. I've said it before. It just doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I'm sure it is a pinch moment when you hear something like that. But it sounds like your ability to lead people has definitely put you in that position. Your face lit up when you said, just managing people and that you absolutely love it. What do you love about it?
So there's also the challenges in managing people. So not everything's cupcakes and roses.
Yeah.
I have to say that because it is absolutely the truth. What I love about it is just seeing the engagement through the team. First, from a business lens, I really do believe that the success comes through the team. The sales will follow. If you build a good team and they're engaged, then everything else will come into place. And so that's where I put my focus. But what I really love, Matt, it's been really fun for me is watching people that I've either brought into the organization, I've mentored, to see where they are today is just blows my mind. So Hormel does a great job, Applegate as well, like posting when someone gets a job and everyone writes a recap. And I mean, I really do just being with pride. I'm skipping after seeing those announcements. And then on the personal side, you get close with people. I mean, in 3 weeks, I'm at someone's wedding that I hired from St. Joe's University, where I attended, and came up through the organization together, and like to be that stuff. And we have a bunch of those. We call them, my wife and I call them the kiddos weddings. But we love it because you're a part of their whole life. It's just really special, and we're fortunate. And so,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, totally love that. I want to talk a little bit about Applegate. I first just one thing that is very unique and I love is the separation of like church and state, Hormel and Applegate. It's like it is really important to, I think, have that, especially with like looking at a company like Applegate. It's something that I looked up to for a very long time, that brand. I still do, like running innovation workshops. Like that's a brand that we looked at and said, okay, how do we become more like Applegate? What is Applegate doing about this? Like it's because it has strong principles, a strong core, and definitely a larger corporation like Hormel can erode some of that and, you know, kind of leak in that culture. So keeping it separate is, I think, just super wise and awesome. So lots of kudos to Hormel and Applegate for making sure that stayed in place. I love the mission at Applegate, right? It's change the meat we eat. I think that is so important for us as a nation to focus in on, like, how do we actually, you know, change the meat that we eat within our, you know, in the meat space within our stores. I'm curious, like, just what does that truly mean to you? Change the meat that we eat, and how has that mission really guided your innovation?
yeah, absolutely. So for us, Matt, change the meat we eat just means simply we're trying to change the food system. And so when it comes to innovation, just like everybody, we look at trends. You see what spaces that maybe that you think are an opportunity. But really what it comes down to for us is we put everything through a funnel of people, planet, animals. So improving people's health, improving the health of the planet, and making sure that animals are well cared for. So if it doesn't fit into those lenses, and it does happen, like, so we call it the MSI, the Meat Solutions Index, like where we check. It's almost like a scorecard. And it's usually you can do, on one hand, you see what, you know, the opportunity might be, but if it doesn't go through the funnel, we're not going to do it. And there have been opportunities, because there's been many opportunities where maybe we could have done something for human health, and it could have helped the planet, but it wasn't up to our standards for animal welfare. And so it's done. So then it's either you kill the project or you find a way to make sure it checks all those boxes. And so on our point of view is, if we can do it where we are improving sustainable farming practices, we're improving also the generational wealth or the opportunity for these farmers, because we know how struggling it is for our farming network, which is over 4,000 farms now. Those are all things that go into this funnel, and that's what starts to drive the innovation. And right now, that pipeline that we have is 3 years out. And as you know, with innovations, hits and misses. And so you gotta build more to just get something. But we're really excited with where the brand's heading.
Yeah, never stop filling that pipeline.
No, no.
That's for sure. I love like the lenses that you're using. I'm curious, like, how exactly are you using those, and like what are the decision factors? So like, say if you have like a really great concept and it does well for sustainability, but it doesn't negatively impact animal, like, but it's kind of just like neutral. Is that something that will go into the pipeline, or does it have to have a positive impact on all lenses?
Yeah, we focus on positive impact. I mean, there's certainly a level of probably degree or whatever to some of our decision making. Thing is, though, for most of these we think can be solvable. But if you're working with us as an example, they already check all the boxes for animal welfare as an example. So we have great partners in CH and GAP, and then, or if it's Rock on the organic side, we have partners. So if we're already certified by these third party, they're already up to the Applegate community race standards. And so there is a comfortability to that when it comes to making sure that box is checked. But honestly, our team is just so aggressive that they're pretty much confident that they can solve for a lot of this. We have an upcoming launch where eggs were in question and like, where's the sourcing of cheese? Because we don't do a lot of stuff with cheese. We don't do a lot with eggs. Seems like we'll figure it out. And maybe it took us 18 months to 2 years, and it did. That's okay because we did it our way versus cutting any corners.
Yeah, that's really important for our industry, is making sure that you are doing your due diligence, not cutting those corners, and making sure that you're upholding that quality and the standards that we have as our brands, for sure. You talk a lot about regenerative agriculture, and I think that's a pretty innovative topic of, transforming our industries with regenerative agriculture. Just could you give me a definition of what does that mean? As a consumer, sometimes it's like, well, what is that? What is clean label? What is natural? Like, what is regenerative agriculture?
Yeah, well, count me as one of the people prior to 2020 of not understanding regenerative agriculture. So I was definitely one of the folks. Regenerative to us here at Applegate means that we can make a positive impact to the land through animals. But really at the heart of regenerative, it's about restoring soil health, improving the density, retaining more water, and then eventually removing pesticides and other such products from the system. And one of the things to me, Matt, probably the best thing that ever happened to me was I got to go out to a savory hub with Land and Market in Colorado. And it was this amazing bison ranch. I had actually never been on one. Massive animals, cool experience. Also up front, when you see them so close, it's also intimidating. But they start talking about the soil health. And they said, they had like glass-filled jars, and they're doing the demonstration of the water retention, et cetera. But they're like, this is the current soil depth. And I was like, pretty deep. And he's like, can you imagine when it was back in the 40s and 30s? He said, it would have been, he said, my arms can't even go. And that's when it really sunk in for me then about all the damage that we have done, a lot for the right purposes, for the reasons as we've sourced food and growing in opportunity. But we've actually damaged it along the way. And so that's part of our messaging. And that's what makes regen so difficult right now, is just how do you get that message across to consumers? Because the attention span of some of our consumers, everyone's got a lot going on. So how do I get my message across? Now, it's a big story to tell. But that's what ultimately comes back to what regenerative is about. And that's why we took our position on it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is a tough story to tell because it takes a lot to explain. And like, I worked with a company called Lumberg Farms for a while, and they talk about that as well. And they've actually mentioned the Dust Bowl quite a bit, because that's really what was the start of their company. It was like they had this Dust Bowl, and that happened because of the way that we were treating the land back, I think, in the mid 30s. And they had to move out west to new soil because they damaged the soil in that area. Not Lumberg, but the farmers that were there, because we didn't know any better. But now with the technology that we have, absolutely we could find better ways to be, regenerative with our agriculture.
And it makes sense though too, Matt. Is you get into a lot of the stuff is just very practical. It's actually simplistic at its form. If you think about it, we plant seeds, we till the earth, we churn things up, we grow crops, we cut them down, and then in a lot of places it's dormant for 6 months of the year or whatever the time span is. And then so the sun beats down, to your point, the winds come, the rains, and it just starts to wash away the top layers of soil. And so, we had an opportunity recently to be up at the University of Minnesota talking about winter cover crops. And could we turn those winter cover crops into additional feed sourcing? And so that it's a cycle 365 days a year to cover the top of the soil while also replenishing the soil. I mean, it's pretty cool stuff. I get geeked out over it. And like I said, I didn't even know about it a couple of years ago.
That's awesome. We could definitely just be more mindful about exactly how we approach, our process, because it is those little changes and tweaks to the process that can, make sure nothing goes to waste. I love that, that we can use these winter crops to cover the soil, keep it healthy, and then use it as feed. It's so awesome. The Do Good Dog. This is something that caught my attention back, I think, in 2021. Yep. It's a all beef hot dog with regenerative agriculture in mind, right? Yes. So how is things going with the Do Good Dog? Tell us a little bit about it. Yeah. And then, where is it currently from 2021 to now 2024? Yeah,
thanks for asking.
Where's it going?
It was, again, part of my education was the Do Good Dog. And so the Do Good Dog in its actual infancy was really for us to test the impact of regenerative with consumers, but also could we source it? Was there enough source for us to bring a product to market? And the hot dog itself is it's the American iconic to us item. It's the food staple. People are comfortable with hot dogs, and so that's why we launched it. And so it was beef that we were able to source from regenerative, certified and verified lands, and it was our test. And so we put it in the market, and then we quickly found out that a couple of things. One, consumers definitely, despite our efforts, and we spent a lot of money to tell the regenerative story, they did not know what regenerative meant or was. Two, going back to the same iconic item that we chose, we put it into an extremely busy set where the choices for consumers is expansive. I mean, you stand there, Matt. The decision tree when you think about hot dogs is kind of crazy. Obviously, besides protein, it's size, there's some flavoring, there's the brands, natural, organic, or just one conventional. How many do I need to feed my family? Are the hot dog buns going to match the packet I chose? I was thinking of Father of the Bride, the old movie of Steve Martin, where he's ripping the buns in the store because he didn't have the right amount of buns for the hot dogs.
Oh, that's great.
Point is, we decided, we found out from the research that we couldn't have consumers choose, the Applegate, our loyalists, between no antibiotics, ever natural, organic, and regen, because they were saying to us, what's really the difference between the three? What am I doing here? So we made the commitment to say, we came back and said, we're all in because we think regenerative is the right thing to do. So why don't we just make it all regenerative? So then it goes back to the decision tree of consumers deciding between natural and organic. And that's what led to our announcement of having everything transition over here next year. 6 million acres that we're able to convert to regenerative practices, both verified and eventually certified. And it was a good test for us. And frankly, Matt, for someone like you who's been in the innovation space, we probably should do more of that. I mean, because we went with customers that had really rich data. We could get the consumer information so we can understand a little bit more of their buying habits, patterns, etc. And it was a good lesson for us. And I hope that some of our innovation will continue to follow perhaps a similar model.
That's awesome. And yeah, it's definitely a big learning. It's like that you have these 3 different claims, and you have to just see the consumer's head spinning while you're standing there at the case. Like, what do I pick? And what the heck does any of these claims actually mean?
Yeah. And there's so much to say too, right?
Yeah.
And what's the first claim you want people to read? Like, what do you actually, and we have all that research too. I mean, we spend a lot of resources to continue to study the consumer each year. It is not only just for trends, but to understand, are what we doing still matter, and what claim means the most to people. And so once you start playing a lot of that stuff on pack, or you make it standalone, you make it tough for people. I mean, some people just want to buy it for flavor, right? Or some people may go, I just love your hot dog because it's free of several allergens versus, and that may be their decision point. But if we can get them to buy and it's helping improve the lands, all the more better.
Yeah, I love how I kind of put back regenerative agriculture is just the company, basically, right? So that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can focus in on the claims on the package on things that actually are going to get consumers to pick it up versus other brands.
Yeah. And I an opinion of one, but where we are headed it is another claim today. It's another attribute to the product that you're selling. It's another piece of your story. And again, for us, because it's easier sourced with beef today, we're looking at other species now about how can we continue to move regenerative across the entire portfolio. Very difficult task, but I have a team working on a trip coming up here in September to go look at hogs as an example. And I feel confident that we'll be able to get there, but it's difficult because if you really want to have an impact on the lands, Theo, who used to be at Whole Foods and is currently a partner of ours, always says, how does a chicken impact the land? How do you get to do that? And so it's stuff that we're working through, but we also see it as an opportunity to make it another part of the Applegate story.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a true, beautiful vision. Now, I often say this a lot. What we measure gets done. And when it comes to innovation, I find leaders finding it a challenge to figure out, what do I measure? And I'm curious, like, what's in the measuring toolkit for Applegate when you think about innovation?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So we are no different than anyone else when it comes to there has to be hurdles and success. And then it actually meant in full transparency, that is a challenge for us because based on our network and the partners you choose, as you know, it can be difficult to get it produced if you don't have a large enough volume. And so when we start to put things out, we have to we quantify the size of the prize. How big do we think we can get it? Well, then that translates to our supply chain first and foremost. Can we secure it? Second, can we get it made? Okay, so that's everybody and everybody else. For us, then, though, what we've started to do a better job of is actually tracking our progress. And I would say on the negative side, we didn't do a very good job of that for several years. We were just in our mode. We were just doing it. We're like, no antibiotics ever. Well, we partnered with Ecotone Analytics, and they're like, well, actually, it's 11 tons of antibiotics that you've removed from the system. And it's like,
Yeah, that's my blowing right
and
there.
so imagine just when we came out with our impact report this spring, it was really cool for consumer and customer facing that it's just seeing the team here. I mean, it was something to stand in front of the group and say, look at the difference you're making. Look what either you've removed from the system or you've improved 51,000 tons of soil by our grassland practices. You start to track it through the partnerships. We hadn't done a really good job. And so to bring it full forward, we're now tracking the impact. And does it check again back through the funnel and the boxes? And are we doing it the right way? And hopefully those numbers each year will be able to grow through the innovation. And then also on the really cool side is just to see that the customers react to it. So you know how tough it is in the retail market. And they also have a million things coming at them, a lot of decisions to make. Space is so limited. But the story is say, if you are carrying this or you're partnering with us, this is also the difference you're making. And that was pretty neat this past year to see happen with our frontline sales team. We're just top to tops or other engagements. And because we can't do this alone, we're not a direct to consumer business. It's all through retailers or online sources and partnerships like that. And so, we need them, and it's really cool to be able to tie their story to our story.
That's awesome. You make a great point here too. Like when you think about a CPG brand and then the consumer, you're once removed from that with the customer in between, which is those retail partners. What has been the retail partners' major things they need to get done and they're looking for you to get done? Like what is saying, hey Joe, I need your help with X. What is that thing?
Yeah, a lot of it right now. So the big trend right now, and this would be no shocker to you, especially coming from Boar's Head, flavor profiles. Is it up with the trends? So I'm going to take that one to set that aside for a second. The second one does come down to sustainability, and also I'd say availability. Can you actually provide and supply for us at the scale that we need for some of these retail partners? But one of the things that we get asked most about is some of the sustainable practices. People have a lot of interest in our brand just due to majority of the portfolio being free of the top 9 allergens. That's huge. 10 of the portfolio is gluten-free. And that's why we work with organizations like FAIR. We're able to help identify, through some of the trends. Well, we take that and go to customers and say, listen, 1 out of 3 consumers are either buying for someone with allergens or they're buying for themselves. So do you have this within your set? And so they ask us, hey, can you make that next item gluten-free? And then of course, Matt, you start chasing, hey, can we get the sourcing to make this gluten-free, which from your background is very difficult to do. And so it takes time. You got to build a source. Where are you going to source it from? Because we got that product, got to have integrity, and it's got to meet our no-no list. We have 700 ingredients on our no-no list. And so it takes time, but that's what retailers are asking for. And then on the other side, as it's no surprise to anyone listening to the podcast, it's just the current economic environment. And you have the right offerings and pricing. And that's the largest discussion today is around pricing and cost and value. And then that's certainly what drives some of our decisions as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a really hot topic right now when you're thinking about this, the way that inflation is going and supply chain. Absolutely, that's going to be a top of mind topic for sure. But I love that the retailers are also considering what are the needs of my consumers, right? It's just that's awesome. And that Applegate is actually fitting that perfectly with the sustainable and the allergen piece for sure.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like, so let's go on to the consumer then. So thinking about like now you have to meet the needs of your customer and meet the needs of the consumer that's purchasing the product. What are you seeing as far as like consumer trends like right now that are happening, and where is it going?
Yes. So there's a lot of trends. There is a lot of trends right now. I do think one of the largest is what I just said though around economics. And it's one of the reasons that we're investing more of our time, resources, and prioritization into all the PPA efforts to make sure we have the right size packaging at the right pricing and value consumers. So that to me is number trend. Two has definitely been around the flavors, what's new, what's in, but you have seen a lot of things I feel like come in and out recently. Like the spicy craze was one of them that comes to mind. Everything had to be spicy. It's still there. It's always going to be there, but maybe not as relevant as it was just a few years ago. That third trend though really does come down to the millennials, Gen Z, is around sustainability. I was just sharing with somebody yesterday in a conversation we were having here in the office. Maybe what we're doing today, Matt, is for a larger group of people, but it is that generation that's gonna have to deal with the outcomes of what we've done in our society in 10, 20, 30 years. And they're making purchasing decisions today for that reason, because they understand they're going to be handed the bill
Yeah.
here in a couple of decades. And so they have a huge buying power, and they're making the decision at shelf to purchase more sustainable brands or brands that they feel connected to, that are transparent, that they understand what they're eating. And then that to me is just a really fascinating thing that's going on. And that doesn't discount any other age group. It's just what I believe every organization is or should be looking at, is to say, who's cashing that check or who's going to pay the bill. And it's this generation now. On a personal note, the one that I find fascinating too is just seeing this generation have children for the first time and decisions that they've made now translating to their children. I mean, I still eat stuff that my parents made for us or bought for us because you're influenced by those parents. And so,
Yeah.
that's going to be really interesting to see how that develops or unfolds over the next couple of years.
Yeah, that's some great points there. There's a couple like stats that I have like on that too. Is like, well, I think 73% of products that are in our cabinets are there because our parents had them in their cabinets.
I
So
believe
we
it.
absolutely are irrational when we purchase. So if we had Heinz ketchup as a kid, we're gonna have Heinz ketchup as an adult. That's most likely what's going to happen. And the other thing is like, yeah, the newer generation absolutely is going to, hold us accountable for being more sustainable and doing the right thing. But as a whole too, like consumers today, even like, the older shopper is expecting brands to be more sustainable. What
Yeah.
that means is completely up to us to define like what is that exactly is. Is it regenerative? Is it regenerative agriculture, or is it, organic or natural or something else? But we have to be the ones that are sustainable. They expect us to do it more so than that they are to do it. So they might carry around water bottles with them, plastic water bottles. Doesn't mean that you get a pass.
Yeah,
We
right.
got to do something about it too still.
That's
So
right.
those are really important trends that we need to keep our focus on. I'm curious, how are you keeping your finger on the pulse of this? Like what are you doing as a company to make sure that you are staying on the newest, latest and greatest trends?
Yeah. Thanks. Well, first, we have an incredible team who is so passionate. They're in the space. I feel like we have a lot of those actual consumers in our office. Like they are present. And so I take that. The second is we do have a consumer insights team. Angela Stethis leads our team, and Angela does all the research into where consumers are, where are they going. And then, we do just a lot of our own education and research. I mean, some of it's gut decisions we make, certainly where we think something is going to be impactful. But the data will tell you. I mean, we know as a fact that there are 30 million consumers that are not purchasing Applegate today, but they're our target. And you know that through the research. And then so same thing going back to the innovation, same thing going back to your current portfolio offering. Why are they not buying us? Why have we not entered their cart? Have we been there before? Didn't like it? Was it a tasting? Was it whatever, right? And so We then start to spend the time, we call it our SVC, and start to get into what that group is and then who they are. And then what do we do to what products do we create for them, or how do we target them through obviously through traditional things like media in other vehicles. And so, but we try and stay ahead of the trend. We're not always, we've been late to certain things. There's no doubt. We're not perfect at being the first to market. And actually sometimes we have these ideas, but we can't source the ingredients, or we don't have the raw supply, and perhaps we don't have a manufacturer to help us produce it for us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, yeah, it's as simple as having the idea and then all of a sudden, boom, it's in market. Yeah.
Right.
Gotta execute,
I wish.
I know that would be nice. It could just manifest it. So you talked about like 3 years worth of concepts in your pipeline, and with these consumer needs changing and evolving quickly here, I'm curious, like, what are like the most exciting, like what is one or two of the most exciting things in your pipeline that you could share? Like,
Yeah.
what has you like, just, I can't wait till this launches?
Yeah, thanks. We have several. We see a huge opportunity to continue to expand within breakfast. And so if you go back, we have a core 5 categories that have been the hallmarks of Applegate. It started with Wall Deli and hot dogs and bacon. And then Applegate had transitioned to start bringing in more frozen items in the portfolio, like our breaded chicken, like our breakfast sausage. And then there's all these things on the peripheral. The one area that we continue to see growth, and it's within all the statistics, is just breakfast. I mean, convenient breakfast is an opportunity, and we believe that we would have a right to win within that space if we do it the Applegate way. Again, do it. It's going to take the time to source. It's going to take the time to make sure we have the correct items. But we see that as a huge opportunity for us. And then there's other things that I want to have our team revisiting, just with the extensions out of our Wall Deli, which is one of the people come into our brand through hot dogs, through bacon, through Wall Deli. We just think there's an opportunity to continue to stand there, especially getting around snacking. Our parent company does a really good job at the snacking within their total portfolio. And so it's just an opportunity for us to look. But I also think there's more creative ways for us to continue to push into categories we're not into today, doing it our way. And that's what's in the 3-year pipelines. I can't share everything because there's some other new categories. Well, hopefully, Matt, this isn't the only time we chat. But I would say there are some new categories we want to enter that we are currently, they expect to see Applegate show up there. So
Yeah.
But we have it within our sights.
That's really smart. I love how you're talking about like these different categories. Like, I have a great mentor, Carl Fritcher, over at Mintel, and he always says, like, you're not going to get people to buy more bacon. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, or whatever product, you're not going to get them to buy more. So how are you going to really expand? And that usually that expansion comes from, what are those adjacent categories that you can jump over to say, okay, well, Applegate's strong here in the meat space, but we could be strong in the breakfast space, and moving it over to other categories to expand. So,
and
I love the way that you're thinking.
And then find the connection so consumers know you're in the other space, because that is so difficult to do. And look, there's if someone says we have runway to go forever, well, no, I don't agree. You don't belong in every space, and you're not going to win in every space. And so you got to do it, and you have to do it well if you're going to go. But then, really, how do I tell the consumers we're now in X category or whatever? And so that's what our brand team works on. And we have a new campaign called the Modern Farmer that'll launch next week. All new spots, our first spot since before the pandemic. And we're really excited about it because we think it pays tribute to our farming partners in a fun, quirky way. But it also gets our message across. And that's one of the reasons it's so important to be talking to consumers today. So.
Awesome, Joe. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really enjoyed this conversation. I could probably go on for like another hour, but is there anything that you want to leave the audience with? Like, I'm thinking, like, anything about Applegate and your vision of the future. Like, what do you think?
I would be remiss, because I always make sure any chance I get in any forum is just to thank our team. We have the most passionate group of people I have ever worked with. I mean, this group is not only just talented, but they truly care about what they're doing. So to my team, if they're listening and they see this, I just want to say thank you. Like I do. I always say to them, Matt, I say, for all that you are, for all that you do. Thank you. I appreciate you, because I think it's important. Second, I would just say from a brand standpoint, we're going to continue to push the change the meat we eat. We are going to continue to try and change food system, and it's not easy, but we think we have the right recipe for success. We've seen the growth since the founding in 1987, so we know consumers are bought into it. Our retail partners are bought into it, and we have to live up to it too as well. We're not going to be handed anything, but I would just say there's a lot more to come from this brand, and stay tuned.
Awesome, Joe. I mean, spoken by a true people leader for sure. It's permeating through you. So thank you so much. Thank you for all that you do for your team. Thank you for what you do for the industry. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on today.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
We have made it to the end of another episode. Thank you for tuning in. A couple of things before you go. If you have found value in this episode, I am sure you'll find value in what we have coming up. So please subscribe so you will have access and know when we launch the next episode. Also, leave a review. The more reviews we have, the further our reach becomes, and I truly want this to be heard by as many leaders as possible. Don't hog this all for yourself. I would love to hear your insights on this topic, so meet me on social media at Matt Mueller Innovation on LinkedIn and Instagram. And lastly, if you want to learn more about my story and what I can do for you and your company, go to themindfulinnovator.com. I would love to help you innovate on purpose. Until next time, just remember, bring a level of awareness to each conversation, each observation, each moment, and you can create great change in this world. Thank you.